All right, here we go. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of DESMA Chats. My name is Andrew Whitcomb, and I'm part of the DESMA Network. I'm a DESMA Fellow at Veriday, and we're joined today with Gudrun from Iceland, and we'll spend a moment letting you introduce yourself in just a sec. And Andreas Banker, who's another DESMA Fellow at Aalto University and Philips in Helsinki, Finland. Before we get started, I just would like to give a quick introduction to DESMA Chats and the DESMA Network.
I'm about to turn off the phone.
That's the beauty of live TV or on-air hangouts. So always keeping it interesting for you all. So just as a quick introduction before we get started, DESMA Network is a group of design, management, business, researchers, scholars, and practitioners from all parts of the world that are interested in kind of exploring the territory that happens when design and management and business all kind of come together. So we started out as a group of researchers, but we've been expanding and growing, and we're really trying to drive a conversation about kind of what are the possibilities in this space. So as part of our efforts to grow the community, we have this initiative called DESMA Chats, where we find people doing interesting work around the world that have an interesting perspective, and we ask them to kind of share some of their thoughts on a particular topic that's interesting, that they're kind of talking about or they're looking at in their work. And today we're really happy to be joined by Gudrun, and I'll let you say your whole name. But the kind of the overall topic today is design managers and creative leadership. So Gudrun, maybe I'll pass the microphone to you and let you introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do and what you're interested in.
Yeah, hi. If I pronounce my name, that is Gudrun Lilja Gunnlaugsdóttir. And thank you guys for inviting me to be a part of this chat. It's really nice. And I've been looking at what DESMA has been doing, and I think it's what we need to be doing today. I run a small little design studio here in Iceland, and we work on all kinds of projects, from like visitor centers for the soil conservation to a flagship store for Russian cosmetic brand. So it's all kinds of stuff. Run a small production also, little brands, and consulting. So it's quite various. In Iceland, you have to be kind of a chameleon. You have to do all kinds of stuff. It's not that we have many design offices here. Designers, but not like studios.
Well, I think that sounds like a perfect, like you're going to bring a really interesting perspective to the conversation today, because one of the things we talk about a lot in DESMA is wearing different hats and trying to work across different territories and be a little bit like chameleons, I would say. So it's really exciting to have you here.
Yeah, it's good. I'm happy to do it.
Cool. Well, then maybe after that we can have Andreas maybe say a few words about yourself, and then we'll get this conversation started.
Yeah, also on my behalf, thanks very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to join DESMA Chats. Yeah, so as Andrew was already saying, I'm at Aalto University School of Business in Helsinki, Finland. And as part of DESMA, I'm working in Philips in the healthcare division in a research and development department. Yeah, pretty much developing MR-based medical devices. And my role within Philips is usability engineer. So I'm quite interested in also bringing in user perspectives more into a rather tech-oriented research and development process. So in that sense, for me, it's quite interesting to use designerly thinking and kind of creative tools in order to communicate to engineers and physicists in my department what could be different ways of approaching a development process. So I'm dealing a lot with different languages and different assumptions about design and design management. So that's my main interest in terms of research, to bring in different perspectives into a research and development process.
All right, great. I mean, both of you now have brought up some very interesting things that I think we'll get into discussing right about now. I have to let everybody know that this is kind of a continuation of a conversation we tried to have last week, but there were some technical issues. So we are going to try and pick up on some threads about language, creativity, helping people understand each other when they come from different backgrounds and different training. And I think that this is a good place to start. So shall we dive in to these topics?
Yeah, I think that this topic of language is extremely important. When I first studied prosthetic makeup for film and television, then I studied furniture making before I went into industrial design that I studied in Holland, in the Philips building actually, in Eindhoven. And that was such a huge help, knowing the language of the carpentry and the kind of the technical language of the making. So being a maker, it helped me a lot understanding how to build things or how to develop the ideas, but also the importance of when you are working with somebody that is a craft person that is really good in doing their own skill. It is really important also to have those people inputs into your designs, because it's kind of always a conversation. But then after graduating, then you need kind of the business language and the engineering language. There's a lot of we started our own small brand here and did a lot of business and marketing and things like that. And then you kind of stumble up on walls that you don't know this language and you really have to understand it. So I did a master's in project management, and there I learned the language of this business and engineering. So with those this background, I've been trying to, when I'm, for example, teaching in the art school, or having lecture in the industry or something like that, to bridging this gap using some sort of tools that I am developing or trying out or prototyping or whatever on the people, and see if I can better communicate an understanding between those different disciplines.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because since we are in a research network and also deal with design and management, which is already interesting in itself, but it's when you mention teaching, do you see a difference between, let's say, in the student world or in the academic world and in the practitioner's world? Is it, I don't know, one thing maybe more easy to communicate to different disciplines, and in the other one it's a bit more tricky, or is it kind of very similar in academia?
No, I don't think it's similar. It's completely different to be teaching. For example, in the art school, then when you are teaching, you're always trying to give some of the input to an idea that the students have. Mm-hmm. But you're also trying to give them some tools that they can work their ideas better. And with them, then it's quite difficult often to have like square boxes to say like to do any processes in like steps, because it's like kind of a creative process, this fuzzy flow of things that happen. So you try to do some. For example, I made kind of this project lens here. That we work with the question why, and then when you know the why, then you can go to the what, and then you can go to how to do it. And then it doesn't become kind of a frightening tool. It doesn't become a box or an Excel. But it's easier to do it. But in this tool, for example, I mix the design thinking process, the project management, all the human-centered research thing, and in each steps, then you have tools underneath each and one of them, depending on the project that each student have, for example. And but when you're talking to the industry, then it's more how to explain the fuzzy the students live it, they know it somehow. But the industry, they don't understand it. You have to somehow, well, they maybe understand it, but they are sometimes a little bit afraid being in this unsecure, not knowing exactly how the plan will develop. And then I try to, I have, yeah, for example, if you look at this picture here, then you see here the design thinking process, and that is very much where you are asking the question why the most, and then a little bit going into the how, and now the what, sorry. But if you're in the project management or customer delivery or something, then you're very much in just the planning and the cost and the time and all that process. But when you put it up like this and you see that this is all processes, then it's not that fussy anymore. And you can kind of, from that, you can explain a little bit better the design thinking process steps and how it goes, for example, with the lean startup and things like that. So it helps you somehow to to talk about that it's not fussy anymore. It is something that is in align with other processes.
Yeah, I also, and that's why I kind of also wanted to get your opinion about the difference between students and industry, because based on your graph, in practice, it's many times there's not the time to remain in the why phase long, so quite fast you move to the what and how to implement things because of, well, various reasons in organizations. But it's interesting because in the university you are kind of asked to remain in the problem space for quite long when you work on projects. So in the why phase, and that's why I think especially the topic of creative leadership becomes interesting, because once you move to industry, you're kind of forced into the what and how space, if you want to say so, whereas I think teams should also have the ability to go this one step, well, it's not a step back, but to stay in this explorative phase of the why, and also questioning why do we actually have this and that process in place here, and kind of raising these explorative questions. So in my opinion, it's kind of interesting to see how fast students that maybe have this explorative mindset are kind of pushed into a very rigid organizational structures, and in my opinion that's where creative leadership comes into place to enable teams to also move into that explorative.
So, I mean, this is bringing up some very interesting things in my mind as well. In terms of teaching, you know, we've talked about teaching and educating students in a certain way, but there's a certain amount of educating the practitioners that you're talking about. You know, the people, you know, helping them, you know, understand and be comfortable with, maybe gain a different attitude towards uncertainty, or gain a little more confidence. And so there's almost this element of education that creative leadership, that's important to creative leadership, that regardless of setting, whether you're in the school or in an office.
Like when you're teaching like in that school, you are really thinking of you know, growing the student. You know, you really have to think about picking what is the quality of that student and how you can, you know, work with that quality to push them a little further, for example. And you are never, or you can't be thinking of yourself, you know, or you are there to facilitate, you know, you are the one that makes things, maybe help them and make things easier, or point out or give tools, and, you know, to lead them through this process somehow. And I think this designer, being a designer and being a facilitator, is kind of extremely important, to think of you as such a person. And because it is, you are solving problems, and you are trying to finding also the right questions to ask, to kind of find the right problem to solve. And I think you have to kind of, as a creative leader or a facilitator, you really have to create culture that can foster ideas and grow them, and grow people that are within the team or within those processes also at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that is extremely important. It is a bit like when you're yeah, like a butterfly, you have to behave a little bit maybe like a butterfly, that you're pollinating, how do you say?
Pollinating.
Pollinating, yes. You know, so you're not controlling the environment or anything, you're just going from one place to another. And I think maybe in the industry that is important, maybe not necessarily to have like rooms that you can be creative in,
Mm-hmm.
you know, rather sometimes maybe just to have you know, creative leader or a person, you can call it creative project leader or facilitator or something, that can pollinate the people working in the office organization. So it doesn't have to be always that you put things in boxes or rooms or have meetings that are supposed to be brainstorming meetings or something like that. I think it is as important to really think about the people that are working in this organization and talk to them and try to draw on their qualities and see from that kind of how you can build on new things or innovation within that organization or company.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that raises an interesting question for me, because Andreas brought up this kind of tension between the speed of projects and the need to get things done.
Yeah.
But then also the importance of staying in the why and promoting that. And how do, you know, what is the role of creative leadership in managing that tension, helping people get the best of both, you know, being able to implement things. And this idea of pollination is really interesting, where it's not so, you don't try and put the why in a certain area, but you try and maybe promote the why as an ongoing thing within the organization. People are talking about why they're doing it over time, and the creative leader has to help people navigate that somehow.
Yeah, and I also think when you do that, then people feel that they are a part of the process, and they are a part of kind of an idea or a problem solving something. If you have the people kind of involved in the process, not like something that you just introduce to them as this is something we have to do now, and this is, you just have to jump on the train, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And to plant the seed and to give people also the chance of speaking or coming out. And I feel when you have that somehow, it's a lot easier to know what exactly you want to do in this creative phase, and then it's easier also to go to this phase, how to implement things or how to do them. Because then people are on board more easily and more willing, then it goes quicker. Because designers, they kind of makes things happen in their own way.
I'm curious about the creativity of leaders. So it almost seems like if you are navigating different perspectives or different languages that departments in an organization might have, what are the kind of creative ways that you can do that beyond having a meeting and telling somebody about design thinking, you know, or being more open to asking why? You know, what are the creative actions that a leader could take to do that?
I think you can be creative in any situation, any kind of. You don't have to be necessarily a designer or something like that to be creative. And yeah, when you have worked like I have in the design field for quite some years and done, a lot of people think of being creative is that you make something, you know, nice or beautiful or something like that. But I think also being creative, it is about way of thinking and being not afraid to ask questions and kind of challenge yourself and challenge others also. So it's being creative and this creative process. it's just a mindset somehow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you have any examples of that from your experience, Andreas, where you've seen people that have kind of been creative in the way that they've been leading change in an organization?
I mean, as we were saying, it's kind of, you don't want to put another box or another layer into an organization. It has to be a growing, continuous growth within the organization to adapt new processes or to be open to kind of remain in the why or in the explorative phase. So I think it can be even very small steps. I mean, we now talk about having a design manager, of course, okay, someone that understands different languages and is able to be open enough to different disciplines and their way of thinking and kind of trying to facilitate, as Gudrun was saying, or kind of bringing these disciplines together. Okay, that's one thing. But I think even in very practical terms, lately there was one offsite where the team, our development team, was invited to reflect on the process so far, and so I think can be these very small things that you just take some time off and tell the team, okay, now we are actually also giving you that space to reflect. And of course, then in the end, there were also some action items captured and quite managerial again, kind of to say, okay, now we have this offsite, also what's the outcome of that? But I think I mean, there's no sort of golden standard or no sort of one solution for that. But I think it's the small things that makes leaders also in a way creative to enable teams just to reflect on what has happened so far. That's one example that I could say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of an example from my own experience recently, where every week we have team meetings within our office here at Veriday, and often they take place in the lunchroom, and we'll have a bunch of people around a table, and we'll kind of share what projects we're working on. But it wound up being a little bit difficult for people to explain and describe their projects, because they're all the information is at their desk, right? So like everything, like little models they're working on. So this week, the team leader said, hey, let's just go on a tour around the office, and rather than having this discussion around a table, we'll go meet everybody at their desk, and you can explain the way you're working. And to me, that was kind of a creative take on the meeting, right? She kind of put a different spin on it. And so I'm wondering if there's if this is part of creative leadership, is seeing these opportunities to approach things differently and getting people engaged and working together.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is that you see new ways of kind of changing a fixed structure. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's a lot better somehow to go, like a butterfly, going between those different places and seeing things in process as they are real. Always if you have, for example, a meeting and everybody has an introduction on what they're doing with a slideshow or whatever, it never is the same as bringing, if you are on the desk, well, you can be grabbing different things that are not necessarily on the slides or something, and start talking about them and getting feedback instantly in things that are only maybe half on the way or something, because you tend to want to show things that are ready when you are doing a presentation or something like that. Yeah. And it is not about the ready, it is about the process. Mm-hmm. And of course it has to be ready somehow in the end, but you have to be able to learn and kind of do or recreate it or something. Mm-hmm. But it's to be able and not be afraid also to show your messy working desk or whatever. Yeah. I think that is extremely important, and I think a lot more meetings should be like that instead of the big round table with a slide screen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, one thing also, I mean, project managers, if you want to call them leaders in a way, in a small team, when they start something new, and as Gudrun was saying, maybe also for them, they are used to slideshows and because they feel comfortable with. But as soon as they also try something new, of course, they become somehow vulnerable. Mm-hmm. But that, I think, shows leadership in a way that you also yourself don't stay to what's in your comfort zone and kind of remain in the activities and tasks that you know you can do and you're safe in, but rather also be a leading role in a way of exploring also new territory in your own personal zone. And I think that's also what is not done very much, because people just feel safer and more convenient when they stay in their comfort zone. But usually when I see that managers try something new, it's very much appreciated, even though they might, of course, not be maybe very successful the first time off, but then also it's a very interesting learning process then within the team that's happening in these moments.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, from my own personal experience, as a designer, I've had moments where I feel like I'm really in the creative zone, I'm collaborating really well with everybody around me, and so I feel like I've felt the power of design thinking. But then at other moments, if I'm in a different context that I feel kind of uncomfortable or I don't understand people, I've felt a lot of kind of personal struggles and actually getting creativity to work in different environments. And so to me, there's something interesting about, as we educate design managers, for instance, not just necessarily teaching them about the steps of design thinking or kind of the different goals that you're trying to reach along the way, but helping them understand there's going to be a different way of applying design thinking in a certain group of people or in a certain context, and it's going to be a much different thing in another place, and giving people the opportunity to practice that skill of facilitation of creativity in different areas, not just saying it's going to be the same in every instance. It's always going to be a little bit different.
It's definitely different in every project that you do. Depends on both the team and the assignment that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it can, like when we have been doing, like, for example, the visitor centers, when you're really working with the scientists that are just in the environment and how to preserve nature phase and everything, and then you are working with the design and the looks and everything, and then also about the people that are building the place or whatever. So it's really different groups that you are working with. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to always try to speak the language of each group when you're communicating. Mm-hmm. You are maybe not putting all the groups together in kind of a common, not in the same room, but you do put them somehow together, though. Mm-hmm. That is the role, I feel, of design leadership or design manager, or this is what we want to call in DESMA, or a creative leader, that you somehow bring all the aspects together without necessarily having a big meeting and telling everybody. It's kind of your role to bring people together, and with that the possibilities and make things happen.
Mm-hmm. I like that very much. So design manager is not necessarily about managing design, but managing or navigating people. I like that very much. Yeah.
If you're going to have some new outcomes, it is about navigating people. And building on their strengths. That is, it's about, of course, your strength as a creative leader, but it's really also about bringing the people's quality in, or the team members' qualities. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it is the electricians or the owner of the project. It's the same. It's all the same people.
This conversation about language and different languages and navigating this different people has given me the idea of when you're learning a language that people speak, there's the idea of kind of getting immersed in it, and that's the best way to really pick up a new language. Maybe we could have programs that support that more for design managers, where the best way to learn how to communicate is to go and actually spend time totally in a setting that is unfamiliar, to actually learn the language and practice it, and not just kind of assume that engineers speak one way or managers speak another way or designers speak a different way.
Yeah, I definitely think you listen that way. you're reading about behavior or something like it the other way, but if you go in and put yourself in the people's shoes, kind of, or do their work or try out different things, then you are listening also to the situation, listening to the people, drawing in the environment somehow. And I think that has been my most kind of, if I take education and my experience, I think I have learned the most by experience, rather than from books, from being on the floor and being with people and doing different projects.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on. We are out of time for this DESMA Chats. It's been wonderful having you both, and I've had a really nice time. I hope you have too.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again. It was fun.
And
no technical difficulties.
Yeah, exactly. This went great. And the recording of the chat will be up on YouTube, so you can share it with your networks. And we hope that we'll have another chat for you sometime in June. And we've got some interesting things coming up, so please stay tuned. Check out chats.desmanetwork.eu or just desmanetwork.eu to follow along. And you've always got the old DESMA chat hashtag if you want to catch up on what we've been tweeting about. So thank you all, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.